Just about everything in wrestling is stolen from somewhere or someone else, and this applies to so-called signature moves too, with some of the best and most effective finishing moves in WWE history having been pioneered by others. Even if a WWE star is commonly associated with their finishing move, and even if they do it better than anyone, they still have a fellow pro to thank for coming up with it in the first place. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 WWE stars who stole their finishers from other wrestlers. Join us. Number 10, Bret Hart. Bret Hart may have been a wrestling genius, and he certainly learned a submission or two in the dungeon from Father Stu, but the excellence of execution did not invent his sharpshooter submission finisher. The Hitman was asked by Pat Patterson if he could do the move because Pat felt he should have a more effective finisher to help him in his burgeoning singles career. Bret had never actually done the move before, but Conan, wrestling as Max Moon, helped him figure it out in the locker room. The sharpshooter had already been made popular by WCW Sting, who called it the Scorpion Deathlock. The Stinger didn't invent it either, however, and wasn't even the first person in the United States to use the move. The British Bulldog, Ron Garvin, and Ted DiBiase had all previously done it. The sharpshooter, or Scorpion Deathlock, or whatever the darn heck you want to call it, was actually created by New Japan star Riki Choshu, who named it the Sasori Gatami, translated as Scorpion Hold, and had been ending matches with it since the mid-1970s. Number 9, CM Punk. Bret Hart certainly isn't the only one to adopt a finisher that was invented in the land of the rising sun, of course, with many wrestlers before and since borrowing from there to beef up their own offensive arsenals. CM Punk, for example, has taken not one, but two finishers from wrestlers who popularized them in the Far East. First, he started using New Japan star Hiroyoshi Tenzan's Anaconda Vice submission hold when he emerged on ECW in 2006. Well, he wasn't going to continue using the Pepsi Plunge top rope pedigree now, was he? John Laurinaitis, a man who knew a thing or two about wrestling in Japan due to his distinguished career for All Japan as Johnny Ace, eventually suggested that Punk should switch to something more high impact. Looking again to Japan, the straight-edge superstar decided to implement the Go to Sleep, a move conceived by then pro wrestling Noah star KENTA. KENTA has since been outspoken against Punk taking the move from him and has continued to use the move himself in both WWE and New Japan. Number 8, Daniel Bryan. Bloody hell, this KENTA fella can't catch a break, can he? Add Daniel Bryan to the list of WWE stars who took something from him, with D-Bry adopting KENTA's running knee. Though a running knee strike is hardly the most innovative move out there, KENTA had been using it as a finisher for years before the American Dragon unleashed it to win the WWE title from John Cena at SummerSlam 2013. I mean, if you're going to debut a new finishing move, that's probably the time to do it. To be fair though, Bryan had more of a right to steal something from KENTA, at least more of a right than CM Punk, since he had actually wrestled and traveled with KENTA in the past, the two having some very hard-hitting matches together in Ring of Honor and Pro Wrestling Noah. KENTA himself has actually kept pretty quiet on Bryan using the move, probably since Daniel openly acknowledges where he got it from. Number 7, Tyler Breeze. If it were up to Christian, his finisher would have never been called the Unprettier in the first place. It got its moniker after he, Edge, and the Hardys were joking around backstage, with Captain Charisma telling Matt and Jeff that once he hit them with his then unnamed special move, that they would feel very unpretty. Michael Cole, that eavesdropping scoundrel, overheard them, said the name on air, and the rest was history. That is, until Christian returned to WWE in 2009 and asked that his finisher be given the much more credible name of the Kill Switch. While the Unprettier name didn't suit Christian, it did fit Tyler Breeze, the aspiring male model whose previous finisher, a jumping spin kick, had been called the Beauty Shot. With Christian retiring in 2014, Breeze reclaimed the Unprettier for himself, giving it back its original name. Not that he ever got the chance to win matches with it or anything, but you know. Interestingly, though Christian popularized the move, he wasn't its inventor. That distinction belongs to Tommy Rogers of the Fantastics tag team, who called his version the Tomikaze. Number 6, Randy Orton. Granted, it is hardly news to learn that Randy Orton's RKO was not something he came up with himself, though it's fair to say the Viper has well and truly made the move his own. Variations of cutters have been used for an age, though it was John Laurinaitis who really made the move mean something with his Ace Crusher, which he used to great effect in All Japan. Diamond Dallas Page then taxed it, with Ace's permission, to use in WCW, putting his own spin on things by hitting it in lots of different ways. Triple Triple H then attempted to bring it to WWE, originally using it as his finisher when he was cutting his teeth as a Connecticut Blue Blood, but DDP actually called up his buddy and asked him if he could find an alternative, to which the game obliged. And that brings us to Orton, who began using the move while he was gaining notice as the Legend Killer. It was definitely a much better choice than the overdrive and high crossbody it replaced. Number 5, Crash Holly and Michelle McCool. Many were up in arms when Michelle McCool appropriated the Styles Clash in 2009, with some seeing it as the WWE star taking a shot at a TNA one. AJ Styles was not among them, however, as he later maintained in interviews that he found McCool using the move, which she rechristened the Faith Breaker, flattering rather than taking offense to it. As the Phenomenal One rightly pointed out, it's hard to come up with something totally original anymore, and wouldn't he know it, since he wasn't the first person to do the move anyway. Word is it was invented by Vic Grimes, who you may not remember as WWE's Key. Old Grimy also reportedly did a second rope version of the move called the Wild Fandango. Not to mention, McCool was not even the first person to use it as a match ender in WWE either. Crash Holly, who worked with Grimes extensively on the indies prior to signing with WWE, used it as his finisher in 2002, calling it the Crash Landing, while Billy Gunn, of all people, busted it out in 2004. The Ass Landing, if you will, or the Ass Clash, if you prefer. Number 4, the Iron Sheik. The camel clutch is synonymous with the Iron Sheik, who used the move to break the backs of jabronis and make them humble in the 1970s and beyond. Many assume that the man from Iran is the person behind the move, but it was actually invented in Mexico. And not by just anyone, but by Gory Guerrero, legendary luchador and patriarch of the Guerrero wrestling family. Gory invented the move at some point during his 1940s and 50s heyday, and called it the La de un Cabello, which roughly translates to horse mounting choke, and gives me half a mind to give the Mexican equivalent of the RSPCA a concerned call. Fans are not the only people who assume that Sheiky Baby came up with the camel clutch, since he made the move so famous in the United States. Former WWE star Muhammad Hassan, who took the finish as his own, also erroneously believed that it was the Iron Sheik's creation and told Eddie Guerrero, son of the actual inventor, as much when he asked Latino Heat to stop using it during his matches. Awkward? Number 3, Kevin Owens. For the longest time, Kevin Owens was using the pop-up powerbomb to finish off his opponents, but when he looked at what the rest of the roster were using as finishers, he decided that too many WWE superstars were doing some sort of powerbomb variation. Feeling it was time for a change, KO switched it up in 2019 and brought back one of the best finishers in WWE history. Owens began using the stunner, which he describes as his favorite move ever. Going directly to the man who used it to raise so much hell in the Attitude Era, the prize fighter was told by old Stone Cold that he was more than happy for him to use the move, and was actually surprised that nobody had asked him earlier. Fans were torn at first, but it's fair to say that Kevin has put his own spin on a classic and done the move justice. Though he didn't know it at the time, him using the stunner would help facilitate a WrestleMania dream match with Steve Austin as the Texas Rattlesnake came out of retirement to show him how it's really done. Oh. Number 2, the Hurricane. Stand back! There's a plagiarist coming through! Just kidding, Shane. Please don't bagwell me with a soda can to the head. Thing is, Mr. Helms was for a long time one of the most innovative wrestlers in the business, constantly busting out moves never seen before on mainstream US TV. Many of them were dreamed up in his own imagination, but others were cribbed from elsewhere. For example, the Shining Wizard, the move he used as a finisher after he was asked to stop doing the chokeslam. The Hurricane took the Shining Wizard, a sort of step-up kick/knee to the back of the head, from Japan's Keiji Muto, aka the Great Muta. Muto himself invented it out of necessity, as he needed a new finisher that would be easier on his body after years of performing the moonsault that had turned his knees into peanut brittle. After the Mist Master started doing it, it became the new move of 2001, with many on the Japanese and American independent scenes getting in on the craze, and WWE's resident superhero following suit. Number 1, Shane McMahon. ECW's Anything Goes rules really spurred on Rob Van Dam's creativity, not that he needed the encouragement or anything, as he was able to incorporate weapons into his already vast moveset. Many of these breathtaking creations involved steel chairs, such as the Van Daminator, or that thing he did when he used the chair as a skateboard before kicking it into his opponent's face. But the Van Terminator took things to a whole new level. The springboard turnbuckle to turnbuckle dropkick kick with somebody strategically holding a chair in front of the unlucky victim's face was an inspired, utterly demented way to ensure a win. Paul Heyman ended up showing a clip of RVD performing the move to Shane McMahon ahead of Shane's match with his father at WrestleMania X7. Sensing a WrestleMania moment was in the offing, Shane-O used it, later rebranding the move Coast to Coast to beat Vince at the Showcase of the Immortals. The whole flipping show himself would have to wait until a year into his WWE run before he was able to show fans the original. When asked about the boss's son ripping him off, Van Dam was reported to have said, "Dude, like, whatever." Jesus, he must have been furious.